It's sufficient. We're not big on introductions, but you know Carl Safina, right? Guggenheim, John Bowermaster. No, I promised these guys we were going to have fun. And because so often these
only 2 microphones, 3 of us.
Often these.
That's fun.
You have to fight for it.
We don't want to get mired in gloom and doom. We want to talk serious issues, but we want to. I think the most important words this morning come from the way Celine named her event, Ocean Inspiration. I want to talk a little bit with my 2 friends here about inspiration, and we'll go from there. I mean, rather than start out with something heavy, I'd like to hear about your favorite day or favorite moment on the ocean. We all know each other's resumes. They're long and boring. But I really want to hear about why it is that what it is that inspires you about the ocean, based on a favorite moment. Maybe Carlson, you got the mic. You can go first.
Okay. Well, I can think of a couple or 3 things. I mean, God, I'm thinking about so many things. But I got most inspired about the ocean very early, when I was very young. So let me just give you a couple of very quick anecdotes. When I was about 12, I was fishing for bluefin tuna on my uncle's boat off of Brooklyn, New York. We were only about 6 miles out. And I suddenly saw what looked like the way, it was a slight chop on the water, not much at all, and suddenly it looked like the water was breaking over something. And I looked, and it was about 50 yards behind the boat, and the giant head of a mechanical monster came out of the sea, and that was a leatherback turtle. It weighed about 1,000 pounds. I couldn't believe it. I simply couldn't believe that something like that was just swimming around. And I think that one of the most amazing things about the ocean is that you never know what's right under you and what is sneaking up around you and behind you and from underneath. A little after that, I spent a lot of years just going fishing with a friend of mine, where we rode our bicycles. We lived on Long Island, and we rode our bicycles down to Long Island Sound. We often would meet at a corner in town at 3 in the morning and continue riding. There was one police officer who came to know us pretty well and was always saying, "Are you sure your parents know you do this?" That set the tone for my whole life in a way, because it was just something we made up. We weren't part of a team. We weren't in an endorsed activity. No one drove us or picked us up. We just went fishing. We found places and we just did something that was uniquely ours, and that was really, really special. And then fast forward a few decades, I had the extraordinary privilege of spending about 5 days on Laysan Island, which is a very small island. It's not even an atoll. It's in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. You can walk all the way around the island in a couple of hours, and it's several hundred miles from the nearest other island. Most of the time when you're at the coast anywhere, you have the feeling that you're looking out at the ocean. But on this island, there are literally millions of seabirds. The island is only like 3 miles long and 2 miles across. There are millions of seabirds, and I was there at dusk, and I really felt like it was the center of the world at a much, much earlier time. A time before people is what it really felt like. It was just unbelievable. And I didn't feel like I was looking out at the ocean. I felt like the land was a very small part of a truly aquatic planet. And the birds were just on full burn. I mean, it was just like the roar of life and this little dot at the center of this blue world. It was really, really an incredible moment.
I'm caught up in that moment. It's beautiful. I also have three. One, as a child, my dad took me fishing, and that's really where I got my inspiration, my love of the ocean. He would rent these crappy little boats in Cape May, New Jersey, and they would always break down when we got out into the water. And it was a typical day like that, where we were offshore of Cape May, and the engine wouldn't start. I remember my dad red in the face pulling that cord on the outboard engine, and nothing's happening. And so we just sat there waiting for another boat to come by and take pity on us and get us home. And we sat for hours and hours. And it wasn't any one thing in particular. It was just that whole experience of being at the mercy of the ocean and floating around, and birds and fish and just about everything you see as the sun gets lower and lower in the sky. And I got to know my dad a lot better. And finally, party boat came by, took pity on us, called the Coast Guard, and I remember how cool it was to get towed in by the Coast Guard. I don't think they do that anymore, at least not for free. The second one was early in my career, and I spent almost a whole day underwater with a pair of doubles on my back. It must have been 5 or 6 hours, tagging shrimp in the Florida Keys, believe it or not. And we dragged ourselves out of the water into this, another crappy little boat, an aluminum skiff. And we're lying on our backs, kind of exhausted, and my friend said, you know, they're fighting rush hour traffic in New York right now. So I realized I was tapped into something pretty special. And more recently, just 3 or 4 years ago with Greenpeace, I was up in the Bering Sea, piloting the Deep Worker submarine and living out one of my childhood fantasies, to go deep, deep into the ocean. And it was the first time I had gone thousands of feet down. I was 2,000 feet down. And when I got down there and the lights were on, there's a fish called a grenadier, which has the head of a fish and a body of an eel. It's big, and it moves almost in slow motion. And there was this moment where I had a flashback to those hand-drawn books that I had read as a kid of these monster-looking fish and animals of the deep, and it matched that almost perfectly. And I got so excited that I was literally in my kid's book experiencing this. And I must have been giggling like a school kid at the moment, but it was still amazing to me that, you know, a 50-year-old biologist can still get that excited.
And of course, it's typical that Carl would have a story about turtles and birds, and David about diving. My stories all are a little different, though, because one of my fascinations, and you know, I was able over the years to kind of convince, that's the polite word, National Geographic to fund a 10-year project where we went around the world, literally one continent at a time, looking at different coastlines. But my real interest always is not the fishes and the turtles and the birds, which I of course love, but I'm a storyteller and I need stories. And I can't interview, I can't talk to, I can't hang out with the turtles in the same regard. We woke up one morning, camped on a far side of a big dune in Vietnam, just outside Da Nang. And I woke up, sleeping in a tent, I woke up because there was this hum, perceptible hum. It was about 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, and I couldn't figure out what this noise was. And I got up, got out of the tent, went up over the dune, and there were literally thousands of Vietnamese standing knee-deep, ankle-deep in the ocean. They come every morning to start their day on the edge of the sea because they have busy lives and they found so much energy in the ocean. They would come, we stayed there for a few days, and they would come every morning. You'd see the same scene. Some would be doing Tai Chi, some would just be gossiping, some would be swimming. But it reminded me that there is a reason that half of the world's population lives, you know, within striking distance of a coast. It's because there is something there that turns us on in a variety of ways. So that was a big one. And the other one was very solitary, actually. We were sailing between the Cook Islands and the Marquesas, and there is a standing reef out there that you can approach. And so you can actually kind of put the boat in a little bit of a safe place. And I got off and swam in the Pacific. I think at that point it was about 4 miles deep below me. And I got off with no snorkel and no mask and no fins, just a pair of shorts, and swam. You know, if the sailboat had floated away, I would have been in trouble. But what it made me think of powerfully was just how vast this thing is, you know, that we talk about all the time, and how puny, how minuscule, how nothing we are by comparison. It was a really powerful moment.
I just want to say, if anybody ever has the opportunity to jump off a sailboat in water that's miles deep, make sure somebody throws the ladder over before you all jump off.